This is a demonstration on how to plan and construct a basic slab constructed form. So in this paper, I have a design of a small slab built cylinder. This is not thrown. To build this, I need to have a circle as the base, and I need to have a rectangle that will wrap around that circle to create the cylinder form. In order to do that, I have to determine a couple of things. This is the shape that I'm going to use. I just traced the lid of a container, and then I measured across, and it's a 3.5-inch diameter circle. So I know I want it to be 3.5 inches across, and I know that I want it to be 6 inches tall, which means this would be on the base, and then it would have to be 6 inches tall. In order to make that rectangle, I measured a 6-inch rectangle. I measured once here, and I measured again over here. And that is how I'm going to have that 6-inch tall. Now the question is how far around this is. I don't have the circumference of this circle or the perimeter of another shape. And so I have to figure that one out. So this is how you do that. This is the lid that I traced, and I have a faint mark on it right here. So once I have that rectangle with an undetermined length, I'm going to take that line and I'm going to roll it down that rectangle until I get to that line, and then that is the length that I'll need for my rectangle to build the structure. Now I'm going to cut this pattern out, and I'm going to cut this pattern out, and I'm going to trace them onto the slabs. So this is the slab that I just took off of the slab roller, and I'm cleaning off of that canvas mark. Fleck of dry clay here. And I've already cut the circle base from the pattern that I created. And now I'm going to put the rectangle on here. Try to avoid getting right up to the edges, because sometimes those edges can have a bad stretch in them, and you don't want to get too close. About a 1/4 inch away is fine. And then you want to make sure that you cut carefully. The more time you take to do it correct here, the trouble you save later on. Okay. So I like to remove the clay instead of picking up the slab. Remove the clay that I'm not using. Sometimes it's better to do 2 cuts. You'll get a nicer edge. Okay. So this is the slab that I'm going to be working with. I'm going to quickly clean off the edges and the canvas marks, because canvas is not a texture. I have one little spot in here that has like a little divot, and this is a great time to work that out. It's easier to do it now when it's soft than when you have it standing upright. When it's soft and flat than when it's standing upright. And we're listening to ads while we have music in the background. Okay. So I recommend having a board that you're going to construct this on. But one thing you definitely want to do is have a piece of paper towel underneath the structure so that it doesn't stick as you start to assemble your pieces. Okay, I have my space prepared a little bit better now. And what I found was a can that's about the size that I need, that's smaller than my circle. And this is going to be a support within the soft slab. Because it's soft, it's going to want to cave in on itself. So I'm trying to give this as a support system while I'm working with it until it becomes leather hard, or even to a more sturdy clay. So I did wrap this in paper towel so it doesn't stick to it. You always want a release agent with anything that is non-porous, like paper towel is porous, or cloth is porous, or the wood is porous, but metal and plastic are not. So I'm going to take this can and I'm going to set it in here, kind of in the middle. And then I'm going to take the slab and I'm going to wrap it around. Now, this should be just about, oh, it's actually a little bigger than I needed to, which is fine. Okay, so I have a nice overlap. I must have traced a different size. So you can see here that I have an overlap right here. What I'm going to do with this overlap, just making sure it's big enough on the circle. What I'm going to do with this overlap is I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to cut on an angle. Straight down through both layers of clay, but not the base. And I'm going to cut off those excess pieces. Say those two pieces. And this should get me a really nice, tight, angled fit, just like that. Okay, so you can see how it kind of is on an angle. So what I'm going to do at this point, now I have all the pieces that are the right size. I'm just going to set this off to the side. I'll set it up like that for right now. And you're going to use your fork, or you can use one of these serrated ribs. It's got the little crisscross sharp edges. They hurt if you poke yourself with them. And I'm going to score the edges, just the edges. Don't get too aggressive with it. Like, don't take up too much space. You want it to be a little bit more focused, and you just need it to grip. You don't want to have too much to clean up later. So you can see how I have that scored edge right there. I'm also going to score the bottom edge of my slab. And I'm going to score the surfaces that are going to join right here. Okay, and I'm going to take my slip that has dried out. Okay, so I fixed my slip problem and I have some new slip made. And I'm going to show you how to slip and score this. It's very similar to when you put clay together earlier, if you were doing the sphere, or if you were joining some coils or some decoration. And in this case, because the clay on the base and this clay are all at the clay stage, meaning it's that plastic and workable phase, this doesn't require a lot of slip. You just need a little bit of slip that's going to function as the glue. Now these instructions are going to change with your next assignment. So just be aware that depending on what stage of clay you're working on is how much slip you're going to be using. So this is just clay stage, does not require a really heavy application of slip. So I'm putting the slip there, and then I'm also putting the slip on this joint. I'm trying to join all of it at the same time, trying to save myself a lot of steps. I'm gonna put it on both sides. Okay, now I'm gonna kind of stick those together. Pop that back in there. Get that joint, and what I'm looking for is a slight ooze, just a little ooze. You can see some of that slip kind of coming through right there. And then I'm going to also do that right here. Now every time I move this, it kind of moves that joint, and I'm trying to push that together. Okay. Now, as I do that, make sure that there's some, I'm going to come back with some slip, and I'm going to fill in that gap just a little bit. Fill in that gap at the bottom and any little holes that I see along the way. Any little creases and cracks from working the clay too much. Okay, just added a little bit more to fill in the gaps. Okay, now you can use your fingers to do that. You do not need a paintbrush to do that. So now I'm just going to kind of position it, make sure that it's in the cylinder shape that I want. You don't have to make a cylinder. You could take multiple pieces. I'm giving you the most basic option. You could take multiple pieces and build something that's really elaborate with piece after piece, just using this as a support system. And you could have layers of things. You could build a cabbage of layers. So the possibilities are really quite limitless. I'm giving you the most basic structure so that you can see how you really need to get those basic things in there. You need to slip and score it together. You need to make sure that you have supports, and you need to make sure that you have release agents. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, as soon as this will hold its shape, which I think it will at this point, as soon as it will hold its shape, then I'll remove the structure, and then I can set this off to the side to work on later, and I can do my design work on it later. I'm going to set this aside for the night, so I'm definitely going to wrap this with some plastic. I'm not going to put a lot of damp paper towel in there. I'm just going to put like a little bit of paper towel just to maintain, I'm just going to drop it in there just to maintain the moisture and combat the drying out from the wood and the other paper towel. I'm going to set this aside and work on that later. And later on, I can add decoration, cut holes into it, and do all sorts of things. Okay, this is the soft slab constructed form. I just took it out of the bag, and I have removed the support. And right now, it's between clay and leather hard. Right now, mine is a little closer to leather hard than I would like. It should be a little bit closer to clay. But it will as long as it supports itself, you can start working with it. I'm going to have to make some adjustments to this. And you can see right down here that there is a crease in there. And what I've done is I've taken a small piece of clay and I've rolled a little tiny coil. And I'm going to be pressing this in and blending the surfaces. And it would be better if this was a little closer to clay, so I'm hoping this works just nicely. What I should probably do first is get a little slip or a little water in that crease just to seal up any potential air holes, air bubbles that I get in there. Okay, and then I'm going to put that clay in there and I'm going to blend it out. At this point, you can start doing some design work with it. You can change the top shape, so maybe you can have curves, or if you have curves when you make your pattern, you can do it that way as well. You could do some cutouts in it. There's no height restrictions. There's no design restrictions. The only restriction is the method of construction, which is soft slab. And the only things you have to really consider are that you need a base, and you need the edges, which can be of any shape. It does not have to be a cylinder. And you need to use supports to hold it up. And it needs to be constructed when it is soft, so that you have the ability to create these organic curved shapes, which you cannot do once it starts to dry up. So you can make any kind of adjustments to this. Now, the only thing that I'm asking is that you keep it small, you keep it fairly simple, and you demonstrate impeccable craftsmanship. So make something beautiful, make something unique and original, and you're gonna use your sketchbook assignment that's in your packet to guide you through this, as well as the pictures I've provided you. And then you're gonna start working with that form. It shouldn't take you too long. It should just take a couple of days to build this form once you have a pretty good idea of the design. And then you're just gonna work on that perfect surface and working on beautiful textures and any kind of cutouts that you might want to use, and make sure that the inside is clean as well. So if you need to see mine for a sample, I'm only going to be making a basic cylinder shape, but you can make much more elaborate ones beyond this.